So, a few years ago, I would have never imagined myself reviewing a game like this, let alone playing one like this, because I've never been into Final Fantasy before. I've never been into this type of game, really. I've never really been into anything having to do with anime all that much, really. A lot of my experience goes as far as watching Yu-Gi-Oh! In the morning before school. But considering how much hype there was behind this remake and just the fact that it looked great, going by the trailers and gameplay released, I felt that picking it up would be a no-brainer, and after having spent 30 hours playing it and having my first proper Final Fantasy experience, I can honestly say that I thought it was great. I loved it. I thought it was an awesome time from start to finish. Overall, it definitely has flaws, and I really want to talk about that in this review. So, with that being said, let's just get into it. So first off, I want to talk about the story, world building, characters, and all that jazz. I really liked how the story in this game is executed. I also really enjoyed how the world building was done with exploring pretty much everything Midgar had to offer, from the regular street levels and cities that you go into, as well as the other different types of villages, as well as even going as far as to exploring the sewers and really fleshing those out. Although I will get into the sewers a lot more later on, don't you worry, I have words for those, but overall I really like how it was done. It seemed like there was a whole lot of thought put into really fleshing everything out, and for that I enjoyed it. And I also really enjoyed the characters, and now I really understand why the gaming community loves these Final Fantasy characters so much. Like, Cloud has now become one of my favorite characters in recent memory. I now love this protagonist. I see why people love characters like Tifa, Aerith, whoever else you can name. I get why people really have such attachment to these characters, because I got pretty invested into them while playing the game. So yeah, in terms of shit like that, I'm extremely happy with how it was all executed. I also really like how quirky the game can be. Like, even though I've never been into Final Fantasy, as I said previously in the video, at the same time, I'm aware of the little quirks and whatnot the series has always had, and this game definitely has quite a few of them. And it also leads to the game being really over the top with a lot of its characters and being really corny and cheesy with its dialogue and voice acting. It's something that I think really gives this game a lot of charm. Although the dialogue itself definitely wasn't anything incredible or amazing, I thought it was definitely good for what it was, and I give it an A for effort. Also, the Breaking Bad fan in me really appreciates Wedge's voice actor, so also points for that. Next up, I want to talk about the gameplay. But before getting into the gameplay itself, something I want to mention is that I played the game with regular, much more modern gameplay. I did not go for classic. Personally, I have never enjoyed turn-based combat. To me, it has always been extremely tedious and boring to get through. It's something that has never appealed to me. It has never been my cup of tea. And it's one of the reasons why I could never get into the older Final Fantasy games. I remember all the time when I was younger, I would watch my cousin play the much older Final Fantasy games, and to me, the turn-based combat of those games was such a turnoff. I just never cared. And it's one of the reasons why, even though I'm a big Fallout fan, I've never cared for games like 1, 2, or Tactics. I tried them, I definitely gave them a chance, but that style is just a total turnoff to me. It's extremely tedious and dull and boring in my opinion. I get why people like it though, but it's never been my thing. Anyways, going by my experience with the game and its gameplay, I overall really liked it. I thought the gameplay had a nice amount of depth and variety to it. I like all the different items and abilities that you can get. I like all the different upgrades you can do. I like how, if you're someone like me who's constantly swapping between different party members, depending on how many people you have in your party, and creating all different types of combinations out of said abilities, depending on who you have, it's something that can be really fun and satisfying. And when you have summons ready for all 3 characters, or 2, whatever it is, and you launch those fuckers at that one boss all at the same time, it's just really satisfying, you know? I also really enjoyed just the experience of when you call in your big summon monster, whatever it is, I can't remember. I'm not a connoisseur at this sort of thing, but calling one in and just completely bodying whoever it is that you're fighting is always a good time. Although if there's one thing that I do have to call out this gameplay for, and it isn't really the gameplay itself, it's more so the enemies that you fight. A lot of the time, the bosses in this game can be major bullet sponges. Like, boss battles that are only really 5 to 10, maybe 15 minutes long feel more like 3 hours because of just how long it can take. Because when you're constantly pressing square over and over and over again, swapping over and over and over again just to take down this one fucking bullet sponge of an enemy, it gets to a point where it just becomes really old really fast. And it could definitely kill the gameplay for me at times. Overall, again, I really enjoyed my time with it, but that's something that was definitely an issue for me. But speaking of aspects of the game that can take forever to get through and feel like a major slog, something else I gotta critique is just how much time you spend like in a certain area. Like there's a few different times where you're in the sewers in this game, as I mentioned previously in the video, because you know, of course you're gonna be in a fucking sewer within a video game. It's as common as butter on toast at this point, but it's like, with how much time you spend in the sewers and the fact that you go in them 2 times and you're there for several hours overall, it just got really old really quickly. It just got really dull and lost a lot of its luster. Same thing with the factory that you're in like the middle of the game, and you're there through chapters like 6 through 9, I think. Like, it's cool for maybe a chapter that's at most an hour long, but when you spend several hours in this one location, and on top of that having to deal with all these different mini games, like having to fucking move around a crane and other shit, it gets so old so quickly. Next up, I want to talk about the exploration and side content. I like how they went about exploration in this game, exploring different areas, and the amount of variety there was within each area of Midgar, and the little collectibles that you can find throughout the chapters. That's something that I really liked a lot. Although when it comes to the side content itself, there are so many times where, when you're doing side missions, all it'll be is just talking to an NPC, going to an area, finding an item or enemy in said area, clearing them out after a few minutes of searching, or maybe longer, and then that's it. Like, I don't care about your missing cats. I don't give a shit about the fact that your cats have gone missing. In fact, I'd rather your cat gets hit by a truck and dies, because if your cat's dead, it can't go missing, can it? It can't move around, therefore it's easy to find. Really, I just wish that the side content in this game had a lot more substance to it, but what can you do? Now I want to talk about the art style and music. I really loved both. First off, I want to talk about the art style. I loved the look and feel of this game. I think it's great from start to finish. Sure, in terms of graphics themselves, you can definitely tell that this game is pushing the PS4 to its limits, just with things like the lack of textures on doors and the very obvious JPEG in the background, but the art style itself is fantastic. Also, the music, so good. No matter where you are in the game, the music always fits the setting and tone of it. Whether you're just roaming around the map, listening to that relaxing background music, or you're hearing that really upbeat and really energetic background music that's playing with boss fights, like, no matter the mood, the music always does its job and delivers, and that's something I gotta give this game a lot of credit for. It does a great job in that department, again with the art style as well, so props to Square for that. Also, one more thing I want to mention about the music in this game is, even though I've never been into the series up to this point, one thing I loved is how I still had no issue at all recognizing some of the tunes in this game. Final Fantasy is just one of those series where, just like with some of its characters, some of the music is extremely iconic, and even if you've never heard of Final Fantasy somehow, you've probably heard of the music here and there, at least a few times in your life, and it definitely sticks with you. So, I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was great. So, to wrap up this review, even though I am critical of the bullet sponge enemies as well as the very obvious padding and filler in the game because you can only put in a trapdoor so many times in missions before it gets old, regardless of my issues with it overall, like I said at the start of the video, I loved it. I thought the experience was great from start to finish, I thought it was a very fun time, and now I'm really looking forward to what's to come for the next parts of Final Fantasy VII Remake. If you're a Final Fantasy fan, you obviously bought this game. No questions asked. You've been waiting for years for this game, so you bought it the moment you could get it. But for anyone like me who's new to the series, I would overall consider this game worth a buy. I would say it's worth playing. I would definitely say that even if you are into this style of game, you'll definitely have a good time with it. I definitely think it's worth playing at least once. So, overall, great game. Had a lot of fun. Not perfect. It's definitely flawed. And I'm excited to see where the rest of the story goes with future parts of it. But that's the review. That's all I had to say. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, then make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe for future content coming soon, and I will see you all next time. But until then, I'm out. Later.